evening. This is Aniruddha from Seekamentor community. Seekamentor is an online mentorship platform which helps folks transition into product management. Seekamentor.
So we are honored to have with us an exceptional guest speaker, Rinku Stephen. So ma'am has over 7 years of experience in product management, and she is currently working as senior product management at Microsoft from past 3 years. Ma'am completed her MBA from IIM Bangalore in 2017, and upon which she joined Flipkart as product manager.
In today's session, we'll be talking about the art of creating PM resumes, right? And I'm very confident giving this talk because I've never faced an issue with shortlist, be it on campus or off campus, right? A lot of my resume making I learned on campus and off campus, the way I got into Microsoft itself, I would say, is because of my resume. It is my resume, it's my identity. I'm very particular about it, sincere about the content that goes into my resume more than the aesthetic part of it. And which is why like the tips and the tricks that I've learned, I'm very happy to share with all of you. Right. Now going back into the story of how my resume helped me get into Microsoft. Well, I was working for my Flipkart. We had gone for this Grace Hopper conference. This was 1 year before lockdown and everything happened. There, different companies had set up stalls. There was Google, Microsoft, everything. Microsoft is the only organization where a product leader was present. So I walk up to him. And with all the attitude of someone who's very new to their field but thinks they know a lot, I just walked up to him and I was like, oh, I heard things are like very slow in Microsoft. I've heard Microsoft is a retirement home, people are just chilling there and all of that. I had very candid conversation. I was not scared of him because I was like, hey, he's not my manager, but at least they can get to know if these things that we hear in the grapevine, are they true or not, right? And we spoke, and I was quite impressed by the answer he was gave. I mean, first thing is he did not get defensive or throw any attitude to my question. Instead, he actually patiently listened to my question and then, tried to answer them, which kind of quite impressed me, right? And at the end of the conversation, I left him with my resume. And you won't believe he went back, right? This is someone very senior in Microsoft. He went back and then he referred my profile, even though I never told him, hey, I'm interested in looking for an opportunity. In fact, like I had to turn him down that year saying, hey, I'm very happy with where I am in Flipkart right now. I'm not looking for an opportunity outside. And then the resume kept my profile alive in his mind because next year again, like a year and a half later, almost by then, he again went ahead and referred me. And this time, I went ahead with the interviews, everything, and that's how I got into Microsoft, right? So which is why I'm very confident that, resume is very important. I'm good at it. And it's also your identity. So it's very important. All of you pay attention to what goes on your resume, right? Like I've seen people with that attitude of, hey, resume doesn't matter, in the interview I'll take care of it, but that's not the case, right? Your resume is who the HR, the manager, and all things you are before the event. See, when the first impressions matter a lot, right? So before that, a quick raise of hands. How many of you are from technical backgrounds and how many of you are from non-technical backgrounds? Is there such a thing? Like, okay, technical background means somewhere who's I'm talking mostly about the field of IT or technology. And non-technical would be your traditional engineering courses and things like that. Okay. You can show the raise of hands and using the option in the Zoom itself. Awesome. So we will touch upon the part of how to help even non-technical people get in the role of product manager through your resume. But a big caveat there, I am a computer science grad who worked in IT and then went and did my MBA and then ended up being a product manager. Like I would say it's a God's grace. Like everything I studied is being very useful. I'm working on Windows now, so both technical knowledge that I learned and the management things that I learned from my MBA is helpful. But I've also had a lot of fellow batchmates, colleagues who are not from like a computer science or a tech background, as that they would have learned architecture, they would have learned civil engineering, who ended up who have taken up product manager role as their career. So we will take inspiration from them and then see how we can tweak and update the story in your resume to still make it relevant for the role of a product manager, right? Now, a quick start, like, do you know who is a product manager? Any volunteers? So there's 100 plus of you. I'm sure there'll be someone who has an idea of who a product manager is, but it'll be great to hear from you all. Who do you think is a product manager? I'll just wait for another 5 seconds. If I don't hear someone, I will be calling out someone at random. So, okay. I think we're going ahead with calling out names at random. So we'll go ahead with Nandu. Yeah. So Nandu, who according to you is a product manager?
Actually, my background, as you were discussing, my background is non-tech.
Okay.
But although I would like to try product manager, product can be anything. It's not like physical good. It can be the service also product we can say. So the person who is handling that product or service from RFQ stage to the implementation stage. After sales also provide the sales support, that might be the product manager as per me.
Right. So you are perfectly right, Anu. A product is not necessarily a thing, right? Like if you open the Flipkart app and you just see a search bar there, that is also a product, right? You go to a grocery store and the entire grocery store itself is a product, right? So a product manager is basically someone who who looks at, hey, this is the business need, this is the goal that we want to achieve, this is who our customer is, here is the need or a gap, and then they see the gap between the customer's need and what the business wants to achieve, and they come up with a product solution that solves for it, right? Now that solution could be a technical solution, could be an app, or it could be simply like as small as a grocery store to solve for that need of helping your business achieve their goals and the customers to meet their needs, right? So that's how a product manager works. Now, for a product manager work, there are a set of skills that a product manager needs to have, right? So first skill that a product manager needs to have is product thinking, right? Now, what is product thinking? Product thinking is about, let's say you walk into a e-commerce company like Flipkart tomorrow, or you walk into Ola or any of these companies and they are like, hey, growth has slumped for us. We want to improve growth. How can we do that, right? Now, a product thinking person in that case kind of acts like a Sherlock or any detective. You kind of like try to solve, hey, what does growth mean? Right? Does growth mean increase in like new customers? Does it mean increase in existing customers? What is that, what is the lever that you can use to increase growth? You kind of like go like a detective, you kind of break that into why is growth going down, what are the levers to affect growth, what can we do to impact growth, and so on, and you kind of break that problem down, right? That is the skill of product thinking, right? Next important skill that a product manager needs to have is problem solving. So as part of problem thinking, you will be able to take something ambiguous, something which is not very clear, and you will be able to make it into something which is easier to quantify. It is kind of like an atomic problem statement. That's what you do with it, right? Like for example, growth is not happening. It can happen because of bad PR. It can happen because, hey, there was an outage in the product. It can happen because of some service which is broken, right? Or some operational issues and so on. It can happen for 100 reasons. You kind of put on your detective hat and you find that one reason. And then in problem solving, you'll be like, hey, here's the problem. Now this is how I'm going to solve it. And you come up with a solution for it, right? The solution could be, hey, we need to advertise more because guess what? Our product is awesome, but people are not even aware our product exists. So we need to advertise more. Or another thing could be, hey, a product is awesome, but guess what? The performance simply sucks. The website takes a long time to load. So by the time it loads, people are just bouncing off. That is why our growth is poor. We get more people, we improve on performance and we get more people. So that is a problem solving phase of it, right? So this actually, I would say, forms a huge chunk of what a product manager does in different contexts, right? But three other skills are also necessary. One skill that is necessary is stakeholder management, right? Unfortunately, as product managers, we are being told that we are CEOs of the product, but in reality, that is not the case, right? Like, I cannot tomorrow be like, hey, in Windows, we should do XYZ and all that, right? I cannot do that because engineers have to get that done. Marketing team has to support the marketing campaigns for it. The designers have to give engineers an idea of how the product should look, right? Once it is implemented, you would need support from architects to review your solution. You would need management to kind of invest into your product and want it to grow further, right? So this is a very important skill as a PM that you get the buy-in for your product. Next important skill is stakeholder management or leadership skills, right? So like I said, you are not the CEO of the product. Many a times people are not directly reporting to you, and so on. So you should be able to influence people and still get the work done, right? And that is a skill which I think it'll take some time for you to get there, where you figure out, hey, what would take for this person to get them to do XYZ, right? For example, your engineers can be like, hey, I have 100 projects to 100 other tasks to work on. I don't think I can work on your project, right? And you should be able to negotiate with them and say, hey, my project is just as important as your those 100 things, but here are 2 3 more impact that I expect from my product. And so you can, put it higher on your task list than the other items, right? These kind of negotiation skills are also very important as part of your stakeholder management, keeping all of them updated and so on, right? Two other skills that are important is also domain and tech understanding. Now, if you see my career, right, I was done with my engineering. I worked in Cognizant as a software developer in the field of healthcare, right? It was all about claims processing and automating that process and some boring stuff. Then after that, I went and did my MBA. And during my MBA, I interned at Flipkart, where I worked on the concept of dynamic ads, right? So then after that was done, then I worked at Flipkart again, and this time I was working in grocery category and seeing how can we introduce that grocery category experience on the Flipkart app. Then after that, I was looking at the storefront of Flipkart and how can we improve the experience and get more people to buy things on Flipkart through merchandising, right? Then after that, I'm now currently working as part of Windows in Microsoft. And the first work that I did was looking at experiences in Windows and how can we modernize it, right? After that, I worked on cloud technology. Basically, how do you boot your computer and straight away, access the cloud PC? So it would be like your Fire Stick that you just open your laptop and you're connected to the cloud PC directly. You don't have to install the OS, right? And then after that, right now I'm working on developer experience in Visual Studio. So if you see, like I have worked across domains, across technologies, things, some of these projects are very technical, some of them are more business oriented and so on, right? What keeps changing is the domain that I'm working in and the technical expertise that I need to have keeps changing in each of these contexts. So, what is really important is having a growth mindset where you're open to learning and are willing to build the domain knowledge and the technical knowledge, right? Not all of us are born with that domain knowledge. So, even though I might be like a computer science grad with an MBA, I have no clue how developers think anymore because that is not a persona that I have not been a developer. In MBAs, we don't do research on developer. There are no consumer reports as such saying, hey, this is how developer personas are. But like one fine day, I was just given to it and told, hey, you need to write a product strategy for it, right? So what is important as PMs is for us to have that interest to learn more about our domain and build that domain expert, so that over time you become the matter expert. You become the go-to person for everyone in the team, right? You don't need to learn how to code or anything like that. You can all but it's important to know that, hey, looks like some change in the code needs to be made. Here's the engineering person who can help us out, and you should be able to contact. So domain expertise and technical expertise is very important as PMs. And again, that's not something you need to have before you join a team or a product. It is something that you have as a character or in you, right? Where you are willing to learn more and more about it, right? And the final, I think, the least of all of this, but still more important is, it doesn't matter how brilliant of an idea for a product you have, how much beautifully you've identified the problems, if you're not able to execute and get a product shipped, right? So being able to, ship a product and get all your engineers, designers, your data analyst team, the data scientists, your user research team, the marketing team, everyone come together and ship the product is still a very important skill for a product manager, right? So these are 5 very important skills for a product manager, and your resume needs to talk about these 5 skills, irrespective of what your background is, if you want to get into product management. Just give me a minute. Yeah. So that is about the role of product management, roles and skills. Any questions from anyone so far? Folks, feel free to ask questions. Don't worry, I also started as someone like you. My answer when someone asked me what, according to you, is product management was, oh, when we go to Flipkart and all, there are a lot of products that are sold on it. So people who decide the demand and supply of those products are product managers. Turned out that is called as category management. So it's okay. I understand that you can start off with a wrong premise, but feel free to interrupt and ask questions if you have, right? So, so now that I think all of you are here, I assume it's because you want to be a product manager, right? And it's a great career to be in. If you take Elon Musk, if you take Satya Nadella, if you take Sundar Pichai, all the who's who in today's world of CEOs, they all started as a product manager, right? So it's amazing. Like it's I think one of the most promising careers that you can have if your goal is to get rich and get famous and make an impact, right? So product management is like a great role to be in. Now if you want to be hired as a product manager, what are the steps, right? And I think the first step is having a resume. Without a resume, I don't think like you can make any entry into the world of any jobs, right? So first step is to have your resume always ready with you. Okay. The reason I'm saying always ready is even if I'm not looking out for an opportunity, like which was the case when I went to Grace Hopper, I was not looking for an opportunity to be a product manager. I turned down the offer that year, but I still had a resume with me. The reason being, in product management, like if there is a good role or a good opportunity, it doesn't open again. What I mean by that is, out of my 4 years in Flipkart, 2 years I was looking after the Flipkart homepage and so on. Right? It's a very glam role. It's a very impactful role, and I did not want to like leave it. Right. So what is the opportunity then if like I'm sitting there working on that product? There's a very less chance somebody else will work on a Flipkart homepage, right? So based on that, what I will say is it's very difficult to come across a very impactful product management role. So always be ready. You never know where you'll hear about an interesting role and you might have to give your resume. So always have your resume with you, right? How it works after I've left the campus, how the hiring process has worked is you do an awesome job of updating your LinkedIn profile with everything that you've been up to. You look at what the other product leaders are doing in the industry, use similar jargons and terms. If you're keen on getting into a particular organization or a particular role, look up at profiles of other product managers, see what kind of qualifications they have or certifications they have done, what kind of terms they use to describe their job, right? Like all those jargons, and then you update your profile to have that kind of level of how do I say, level of what the other similar profiles are doing, right? Make it sound similar. And then once you have your profile updated and you kind of update the status to saying, hey, I'm looking out for a job, HRs will directly reach you on your messages, right? Now, once a HR meets you, pings you on your message, you kind of reply saying, hey, thank you for the opportunity. I would love to, discuss further and get to know more about this opportunity. Here's my resume, and you share your resume, right? Now, this HR person who reaches out to you, there's a very high chance they're not a technical person, right? So if I fill my resume with like a lot of technical jargons and things that I work on, let's say in Windows, this HR person might not understand it or might not be relevant to them, right? So you need to build a resume that is kind of a balance between, hey, a non-technical person can understand it, but at the same time a technical person also can understand it and doesn't think it is too simple, or simple that they're like, oh, maybe this person is not technically strong enough. You need to build a profile that is a strong balance between HR looking at it and saying, hey, this person can do this job, and at the same time the hiring manager looking at it and saying this person is capable of doing that job based on what you've written in the resume. So you build that kind of a fine balance, and then your interview round starts. Now in Microsoft, it's very common to have anywhere between 3 to 5 rounds of interviews. You usually in product management, like I think recently I've given interviews in few companies like Swiggy, Freshworks, and so on. It starts with one round of interview on product thinking. So product thinking, you can read this book called Decode and Conquer. It'll have a bunch of case studies. Just look up at those frameworks. So you kind of use those things and you try to solve those questions that they ask in product thinking. They might also ask some questions from your resume. Then you will have a technical round. Now, in the technical round, they will not ask you to code or anything. What they will ask you is questions as simple as, hey, how does the internet work? Right? Can you design a system to, can you design a system that can not able to think of an example right now, but you can just look up for system design questions on YouTube and you'll be able to figure that out, right? You will have one design round where the focus will actually be, can you think on behalf of the user? So they'll be like, hey, we want to make more money, so we want to show more advertisements on our app. What do you think of it, right? And you'll kind of have to put yourself in the feet of the customers and be like, hey, I'm a customer. I'm coming with an intent of, let's say on Swiggy, I'm coming with the intent of eating noodles, and if you're going to keep showing me all like sambar and curd rice advertisements of restaurants that are not relevant to me, I'm not interested. Neither is Swiggy winning, nor is the customer winning, and so on. So they kind of look at, are you able to put yourself in the feet of the customer? Then another round that happens is also about data with the data analyst or data applied science team or the data scientist. Like it depends on organization to organization. This terms keep changing, but basically, again, they will not ask you to solve the statistical problems like the way we learn in our college courses or the way we learned in our schools and all. What they will ask you is, hey, if a data person gives you certain data points, are you able to consume those data points and make a decision, make a insight out of it, right? Convert that insight into something actionable for your product. These are things that they will evaluate you on. Next thing that they will evaluate you on is, can you identify metrics to figure out how your product is successful, right? Like, for example, I just spoke about some app having growth issues, right? Now, growth can be measured as daily users, it can be about monthly users, it can be like users per device, or so on and so forth. There are multiple ways to figure out what growth is for an organization, right? So they in this team also, in this round of interview that you have also, they will check if you're able to define success metrics for the problem statements that you've identified and so on, right? And then if you have a fifth round, it is usually called as a bar raiser round, where they will check for your culture fit, they will check for your values, and they'll see if you are aligned with how the org works as a person, if you really want the job and role. It's very similar to what we call as a HR. Right? So that is like pretty much once you finish all of that, then your salary negotiation happens, and that's how you're hired as a product manager after campus or as a lateral hire, right? So that those are the steps. Now, why am I saying these steps to you in detail is, in all these rounds, what is common is all of these people, before they meet you, they meet your resume, right? They see your resume and they've already made up in their mind whether you're capable of doing the job or not capable of doing the job, whether they want you on their team or not, right? And the interview is simply them trying to figure out if you can actually, I mean, if those assumptions they made about you are true or not, right? So that's kind of how it happens. So again, your resume is very important. It is the first step. It is like your Tinder profile, right? Like when you're kind of swiping right and swiping left on someone on Tinder, you've already decided whether you will 50, 60%, 70%, you would have decided whether you kind of like that person or not based on their profile and everything. And then the rest 30% is you kind of chat and all of that, and then you figure out, hey, I want to meet this person. Jobs are also similar. They kind of see your resume, and they've kind of like 60, 70% they've already made up in their mind whether they want to hire you or not, right? They've shortlisted your profile, and the rest 30% is just your interview, the way you answer your questions and so on. Right? So that's how it pretty much works. So resume, we all talk about resume. Some of you would have had, like as part of your school exams, you would have had this thing, create a resume as one of the questions. And some of you might have seen like these fancy resumes where people put up their uh, profile picture. They have like some skills and they have some graphs saying, hey, these are my competencies. If you ask me, my thought is the look of your resume doesn't matter. Whether it is fancy, colorful, format, all of that doesn't matter. It could be as plain vanilla is the one that you see over here. This is the resume I'd made in 2022 that got shortlisted in Swiggy and a bunch of other companies that I was telling you about, like Freshworks and so on, right? So now, what is important, how in your resume is that it is readable, right? Like I said, the first person to shortlist your resume is not a technical person. It's a HR who just knows like, hey, in my office they want to hire a product manager, and the product manager should know all this stuff, and they just look for a few key terms, right? That's all that they know. So for though your resume needs to be a balance for your hiring manager to be able to understand, and as well as for your technical manager to kind of think that you're capable of doing the job. On top of that, as a hiring manager, there's a very high chance they get like around 400 profiles at least for a job, right? It's and they need like some criteria to shortlist it. Now, if you write like a very lengthy, long resume, which is like 2, 3 pages long, I don't think they'll. I mean, it's humanly not possible for them to spend that much time going through all the pages and everything and figuring out what your resume has, right? So it's very important resumes are to the point, okay? And and it's also another important thing that I want to talk about is to keep like the chronological order of your resume, work from what you are doing currently and then go back, right? So if you see my resume, I'm talking about Microsoft, Flipkart, then what I did in Cognizant, and then my education and academic achievements, right? It kind of goes in reverse. So make sure you also, when you create your resume, you kind of do that, because there is a tendency for recency bias and everything. People might not be bothered about how much you scored in your 10th and 12th and all anymore, right? But they might be like more keen about what your current experience is. So that kind of chronological order is. So now that we've kind of established overall about a resume, let's get in the structure of a resume, right? Like I said, if you look at a bare boned resume, it has usually a header. Now, this header is very important to give your contact details, right? I've got so many friends who will send me their resume saying, hey, can you refer me in Microsoft and all of that? And then they'll give me one email ID and then when I for the reference, but when I open their resume, another email ID will be there. Or they would have like two different phone numbers, one phone number for calling up, another phone number that is there for their WhatsApp and everything. So I would have one number and then their resumes will have another number. Again, that imbalance doesn't work out well, right? So you need to ensure your contact details are up to date. If a HR at any point in time decides to call you, it's very clear, it's at the top. That's another thing that I've seen, right? People will put like their college logo very big and rest of the information and all they put very big, and their phone number will be like one tiny thing at the corner. Right? That's not how it should be. Your contact information should be easy to read. It should be big and bold so that they're looking at it and they're able to dial it in their phone just as easily. It shouldn't be like this training and all, because if there's training, by the time they're like, why bother? And they might just go to your next resume. I'm not even kidding. That's actually possible, right? Like because they have 400 resumes. It could be just this small thing that decides between whether you're getting shortlisted or not. So be careful about that. So you'll have your header with your name and contact details. For contact details, these days it is sufficient if you include your email ID and just your phone number, right? Now, once you do that, then you will have your work experience.
क्या कर रही है?
Yeah, sorry, was
नहीं
that?
क्या करवा रही है? Ringing नहीं जा रहा है.
Hello. Okay, someone went off with my message. So you'll have your contact details, then you'll have the body of the resume, which will include all of these your work experience, and then you can include your educational academic achievements. I still use it, that small part, because I'm yet to get the kind of experience that will fill up the one page. But I think like if I'm applying next year anywhere and I have to update my resume, most probably I'll skip my education academic achievements part. But again, it is based on your discretion, right? So header, body of the resume. Now footer is something that you can't see in my resume because I don't use it anymore. But I've heard that recently there are HRs have even automated this process of shortlisting resumes. So what you can do is take some important keywords that are relevant to your profile, put that in your footer of your resume, and give it, don't give it any font color so that it's not visible. It is simply for the missions when they're processing your resume, they look at those keywords and they kind of shortlist you. So simply from that point of view, you can include that in your footer. But I think currently if you're applying for your college internships or your final job, I don't think that is a necessary thing. This is simply if you're entering the larger workforce and going to apply for jobs on LinkedIn or something, this might be a helpful tip for you, right? So I think we've already covered the structure. We've covered the timeline. Next thing that I want to highlight so like I said, when there are 5 important competencies that a product manager needs to have. Product thinking, problem solving, communication, execution, and there was one more, right? So those are 5 skills that a product manager needs to have. Sorry, the one that I missed was domain and tech expertise. So those 5 skills are very important. You kind of need to highlight those skills in your resume, right? So make sure, irrespective of whether you're a person with technical background or whether you're a person with non-technical background, your resume talks about these skills, right? Just to give an example, like when I was in Flipkart, there were people in product ops. Now, what do product ops people do is basically they kind of ensure your product is running. So for example, Flipkart made this, they will upload all the creatives that are there. So basically they're the day-to-day executionary arm, right? Now these product folks, when they later decide to do like MBA and become product managers, they'll be like, hey, I only did product ops. I have not done any product thinking or anything as such. What do I put in my resume? Right? It won't look relevant. And that is where I, advise them, like, just see from, if you see all of us do product management, right? All of us have some problem that in our work we are solving by doing something. So even as product ops, they look at, for example, efficiency, right? If, for example, 200 content has to be updated by 12 o'clock, and if one team member is taken the day off, how do we still do that, right? They solve for that as a problem. So you can put that like improve the team efficiency by taking XYZ initiatives and so on, right? So all of us do product thinking, problem solving in everyday life. It's just that nobody's given us the title of product manager. So still just see how you want to phrase the sentence so that skill gets highlighted, right? Another is format. Like I said, for me, I don't believe in formats. Mine is the simple table is what I keep pushing to people. One fine day I just opened Word and I said, hey, all these fancy formats are becoming too hectic to update on a regular basis. So I'm just going to create a table and dump whatever I'm working on it on that, right? But if you think like you want to go ahead with a very fancy aesthetic resume because maybe that also improves the perception that they have of you, go ahead, do that. Don't stress about the format. Stress about the readability of your resume, right? If somebody is looking at it, they should be able to say, hey, this person understands business, this person knows what product initiatives to work on, knows what is the output expected of that product, and they're able to evaluate you as a very strong product leader. So that is very important. And the fifth thing that I want to leave you all with on this topic is that be open to experimenting, right? Like it's possible you made a resume, you think it's amazing, you give it to 5 companies and nobody's shortlisting you, right? Then look back, get some feedback from your seniors, get feedback from other people, get feedback from the people who work in the company you're aiming for, right? Tweak your resume and then again send it out to 5 more companies, right? Learn from it and keep improving your resume. So be open to experimenting. It's not like you make your resume once you're done with it. It'll be a living document. Like I said, it's like your identity, right? And just like how we all grew as like kids and then we were teenagers, we're adults and so on, your resume also kind of grows with you and your career. So it kind of evolves with you. And as you evolve, you have to experiment and learn, right? Like I colored my hair purple and then I realized it doesn't suit me. Okay, I changed my haircut. So just like how I experiment with all of those things, it's very important to also experiment with your resume and learn from it and improve it, right? Don't be shy of ever experimenting on your resume. So even now, as you all apply for your college, lateral hiring, final placements, whatever it is that you're applying for, do this experimenting format where for like 2 companies use one, and then for another 2 companies use a different thing. See which ones you're getting shortlist, which resume format seems to work for you, which content seems to work for you, and then take that and use that format for your dream company, right? Because statistically, it's had higher success, so there's a higher probability that the next company of your dreams will also really like that resume. So don't be shy of experimenting, right? Now let's break down this resume. Like I said, um, there is the header, then there is the body, which will have your work experience and your educational qualification. Right now, if you look at the header, it will have your contact details. Now let's look at the experience part of it, right? So experience part of it, it's very important that you mention the time period that you have worked there, which company have you worked for, and the level at which you are at that organization at that time, right? So I might have started in Flipkart as a product manager 1 and then become a product manager 2 and then now I'm a senior product manager. I will not put all that ramana on my resume. Instead, I'll be like, hey, I'm just a senior product manager. I try not to say, give that kind of a breakdown. You only need to mention what you are at the time of writing your resume, right? And then on the left side, if you see in the table, I would have written like, hey, Windows 11 Shell UX, merchandising content optimization. I kind of classify this based on the different projects and the different areas that I have worked for. What it also does by grouping all of these things is because if let's say I don't do this grouping, I just list those 5 sentences, it's very difficult for a HR to like read each 5 sentences and figure out, oh, this all these 5 are like on the same area and things like that. Like it's very painful for HR to figure that out when they process like 400 other resumes, right? So kind of group similar areas of work and then make it easier for them. So now if somebody looks at my profile, they know that, hey, oh, Rinku, she worked in Microsoft. She worked on Windows 11 shell user experience. She worked on Flipkart and merchandising content optimization. She worked on, grocery growth and retention. So they know like what are the areas I'm working, right? Now coming to the actual part of the content. Now what I have done here is actually I while this table and this PDF doc is the final output. For the content part of it, I start by writing on an Excel sheet, right? So I open an Excel sheet and I usually have 4 columns in it. Okay. So four columns are situation, opportunity, action, and results, right? So you might have heard of the STAR framework: situation, task, actions, and results. This is the same thing, but task is a very small activity, right? It's a tactical activity. But we as product leaders, as future leaders of the organization in general, as management experts, we are supposed to be strategic. So that's why we talk about situation, opportunities, actions, and results. Usually, I skip the situation part. I talk about opportunity, actions, and the results, right? So every sentence in this was first input into a Excel sheet, and then I'll be like, okay, so what did I do in Flipkart? Okay, I was a growth hack champion. That was my opportunity that I got, and then as part of that growth hack champion, hey, I launched these kind of set of features. That will be the action I took, and then I'll talk about the results. So as a growth hack champion, I increased Flipkart's units per visitor by whatever, whatever, whatever. And then all this I achieved by launching pull to refresh, horizontal scroll, some AI optimization, and so on. Right? What is also important is we sometimes are mostly brought up saying we need to be humble, we need to, not show off the kind of work that we do and everything. But in your resume, don't hold back, right? Your resume is speaking for you. So as a strong advocate of you shouldn't be shy in saying what you did. So if you were the single point of contact for something, go ahead and say, hey, I was a spoke for this, right? I was the champion for this. Like I have seen some resumes, I know like some friends who are very hardworking, right? They work way harder than I am and everything. And then when I see their resume, they'll be like, oh, I do 5 sprint calls a day, right? Like sprint calls are done by like every other person today in the tech world. So that is not going to add any value, right? But if they had instead said owned sprint calls that increase team's productivity by 2 hours, like making those 5 calls probably meant like the team has rest of the team has to spend less time on coordinating and chatting and all of that stuff, then you kind of saved up on time. So that sounds like a leader, and that sounds more like uh, more of a someone who's strategic thinking. So use these action words and be liberal with them. Okay, don't be humble about it. Right. Next is proofread. Please do be very careful, especially these dates and years. In my I am in Bangalore, I think Tata or Aditya interview itself, I had gotten these dates wrong. It was missed by me, missed by the PlaceCom reviewers, missed by my seniors reviewers, and it kind of got bad in the interview and they figured it out and I couldn't. So please be careful with those dates and everything. Please do proofread it. Then keep it short and simple, right? So it will be very tempting to, write like you've done so much work. And like I said, your resume is your advocate and it'll be very tempting to write like paragraphs of all the works that you've done, but don't do that. Just stick to the framework of opportunity, results, actions, and maybe the situation that was there, and then you can talk about that, right? And the fifth point is LinkedIn Inspire. So what I mean by that is, sometimes what happens, we know the work that we did, but somehow when we try to write, it doesn't sound that good, right? So then what I do is I look at who are the product leaders in that area and who work on similar things and what have they written, right? And if you look at it, they would have written in a much more uh, I wouldn't just say fancy way. It's a much more let's say resume appropriate, it makes them look much more learned and more aware of what is happening there. So feel free to like write similar to those leaders when who you see on LinkedIn. And if you feel like somebody's written something and it's not inspiring, then make sure you don't write something similar on your resume, right? So these are few tips that I want to leave you with from a resume writing point of view. Now I just want to emphasize a little bit more on the SOAR part of it, right? So what is a SOAR framework? Is every sentence in your resume, it has to originate from an Excel sheet where you'll have these 4 columns. First column saying situation, second column opportunities, results, and action. Right now, let's say you are someone who's in the Calcom of your org, and there was a bad rain, right? So situation could be there was this bad rain, you have already spent a lot of money, and the event looks like it's going to cancel, right? Now that kind of translates into an opportunity. You already have people who come there expecting for the event, and what do? Right? And the result could be like you quickly figured out an efficient way to move the event indoors, which kind of ensure the event went ahead as expected. People enjoyed it, they had more fun, and that will translate into your results, and what you did will be part of the action, right? So always keep these 4 columns in your Excel sheet, and it's very important you do that. Right now, why is it important that you follow the structure? Is again, it goes back to what I said in readability. Right now, in my resume, it looks like I have written different sentences, but it's actually in 3 columns, right? So if you read 2 sentences, then you will figure out that, hey, if you just read the end of all her sentences, you will know what impact she has had. If you read the impact middle part of all my sentences, you will know what all work I do. And if you read the first part of all the sentences, you will talk about what are the problem areas I've worked in, right? So if you as a hiring manager, if you as a HR don't have much time to process my resume, you simply need to read which part of the thing is relevant for you. If for you, does she understand business is important, you will just read the last part of my resume, right? And that will tell you I understand my business, which is why I'm able to quantify the impact I've had. So similarly, it's very important that you break your resume into this SOAR format, right? If on your resume you have any doubts, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn or Instagram, because I don't check LinkedIn that often. My name is Rinku Stephen. Go by the same handle everywhere, so you'll be able to find me easily. Or I think you can send a message to Seekamentor and they'll be happy to connect you with me as well. So don't worry about it. Okay. So have a good evening. Hopefully your weekend starts today. Have fun, everyone. Bye bye.
Uh, um, Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your valuable insights and experiences with us today. Your advice on resume building, particularly for aspiring product managers, has been incredibly practical and inspiring. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. Hope, hope you found the session helpful and engaging. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Bye bye.